hopping on the yoga share train to bring everybody a little bit of Soma Yoga and what Soma Yoga has to offer. So a lot of focus for Soma Yoga is to release held tension and to acknowledge those spaces in our bodies and in our minds where tension is creeping up and taking hold. So a lot of that right now for me is happening because of worries about what's to come in the future, and that is all a whole bunch of stuff that is completely out of my control. So one way to combat this tension and worry is to bring ourselves back into this moment here, where I hope for many of you and for me, I know things are still okay. And it's just so easy to get caught up in this thought train of worry and anxiety, and justifiably so. But it's, worry is not doing anybody any good. So action and staying home and taking care of ourselves is what's going to be doing a lot of good right now. So here we go. Let's do that. So coming into this moment, you can sit or you can lay down for this portion of breathing. Oh, and also, side note, I've never made a video before, so this is pretty strange to talk to my phone in an empty apartment. But at least I'm working those vocal cords, so that feels nice, because it's been a little bit since I've talked to someone, I guess people on the phone, but alright, anywho, here we go. So find a comfortable seat, whether that means sitting up on a pillow or a block or laying down on the floor if sitting is just not comfortable for you. I would recommend having your knees bent, feet planted, or if your legs out long is more comfortable, that's your body and your choice. And find your seat, find your sits bones underneath you. Feel yourself sink into the place on which you sit. Feel the ground supporting you underneath. Feel your head stack over top, your shoulders, your spine, your sits bones. And then bring your awareness to your breath. And where in your body do you feel your breath travel to? Do you feel it more in your chest or in your belly? Without feeling any need to control or change your breath, just notice your breath as it is. I invite you to bring your right hand to your belly so that your pinky falls into your belly button and the rest of your hand spreads up towards your sternum. And this is the span in the area of our wonderful diaphragm, the main breathing muscle. And as you breathe in, the diaphragm travels downward, lungs fill with air. Your belly expands outward. Note if you're restricting this movement, and I invite you to really soften your belly and allow for that expansion. And as you breathe out, the diaphragm moves back up. Air travels out your lungs. And your hand and your belly sink back in towards your spine. Inhale, belly expands outward. Exhale, belly sinks back in. I invite you to take your left hand and bring it up to your chest, kind of way up by your collarbone, upper ribs. And as your right hand expands outward and inward, sinks inward, you invite your left hand to stay relatively still. So moving that breath deeper into your belly, and out of your chest, away from your shoulders. When we get into this fight or flight sense of being, living, this worrisome, anxiety-full space of mind, it's easy to refer our breath to travel into our chest, as that is the fight or flight response. So when we move our breath deeper into our belly, or centrally located in our core, here in this space, it's a nice rest and digest breath, allowing for free movement of the diaphragm, or encouraging, rather, free movement. Our belly, our side ribs. Whenever you're ready, you can bring your hands off to the sides and use the warmth from your hand where it was on your belly. See if you can invite your breath to stay where it was. And notice if your breath wants to travel back up into the chest. Invite it to stay freely in the belly. And this is one way to bring ourselves back into this moment, is by noticing the breath and what the breath is doing. Listening to the sounds of the breath as it travels in and out of your nose. Noticing how deeply you're breathing, the length of your inhalation and the length of your exhalation. Inviting those two to slow down. Taking a nice deep inhale. And slowly exhaling, drawing out your exhale until you're fully and completely empty of air. Slowing down your inhale and smoothly exhaling until you're fully and completely empty of air. We'll take 2 more breaths this way. A nice gentle inhale and a smooth and complete exhale. And if you aren't already on your back, I invite you to come down off of your seat, your pillow, or whatever, what have you, and come down onto your back. Now, if anybody is 8 months pregnant like me, it might not be super comfortable to be on your back, so you can go ahead and lay on your side and use a pillow to support your head. But if you're still okay on your back, you know your body best, so listen to it, and you might be just fine. So we'll come down onto our backs. Keep your knees bent up, feet flat on the floor. You'll want your feet about hip width apart, a comfortable distance away from your bottom. So if your feet are too close, you might notice an arching of your back. If your feet are too far away, you might notice a flattening. So find that space where you feel like the natural curve of your low back feels unaltered or unrestricted. And we'll take just a couple of breaths to get situated and comfortable. You can fill up with air, and as you exhale, allow yourself to sink a little bit deeper into the print of the back of your body on the floor, on your blanket or your mat, whatever you choose to lay on. If you'd like to, one more time, bring your hand to your belly, that area of your diaphragm. And notice what your breath is doing here, now that you've come to the floor. Invite your breath back into the center of your core, where it is most free to expand in all directions. And as you inhale, your belly rises. As you exhale, your belly sinks back in. And we'll do a quick scan of the body here, a scan of the print of the back of your body on the floor, on your mat. Sense into the print of the back of your head. The slight curve of your neck away from the mat or the floor. Without feeling any need to change or adjust your position, this is just a tool for sensing and getting integrated into the body. Sense into the print of the backs of your shoulders on your mat. The slight curve of your low back. And the print of the backs of your hips. And the connection between the soles of your feet and the floor. And we'll bring your awareness back up to the slight curve of your low back. And if it helps to tuck your hands underneath your low back so you know where we're working with, where your brain is tuned in to this space. And imagine, so keeping your hips planted, we'll go into an arch and flatten. And I could definitely talk about arch and flatten all day long, but that'll be another video. So for right now, we'll just work into a quick arch and flatten, starting with the arch. So keeping your hips planted, lift into the arch of your low back. So bringing these muscles in together, starting very low in the low back, lifting into the arch. Your pelvis rolls forward slightly, tailbone dips down into the floor. And then nice and slow, release the curve of your low back, rolling it back down to the floor. We'll do that again, of bringing an arch into your low back. Your belly lifts passively. Tailbone tilts forward, or pelvis rolls forward. And then as you release your low back, the pelvis tilts backwards. The low back releases slowly. Everything lowers back down. I'll do that one more time, arching the low back. And slowly releasing all the tension that's pent up in the low back from sitting through our self-isolations. We'll move into the front body here. So this is the second portion of arch and flatten. So hugging in your belly muscles will allow the low back to be really quiet. Bring belly button in towards floor. So if you are pregnant like me, we'll be hugging your belly muscles in towards your baby. If you're not pregnant, you can imagine that if you want to. Probably not. So hugging belly button in towards the floor, belly muscles in towards center. The low back passively flattens into the floor. And then when you're ready, release your belly muscles. And the slight curve of the low back will return. So we'll do that again of hugging in your belly muscles, belly button to the floor, imagining that's what it's doing. The low back flattens, the pelvis rolls back slightly, and once again the hips stay planted this whole time. And when you're ready, release your belly. The slight curve of the low back returns. So let's sync these two motions together by bringing the low back into an arch. Low back lifts up, pelvis rolls forward, tailbone tilts towards the floor, and the belly passively lengthens and lifts. And then ever so gently and slowly lower the low back down to the floor, releasing all of the spinal muscles. We'll bring belly muscles in towards center, hugging in your belly. Belly button is imagined to move towards the floor and the low back flattens. We'll release your belly muscles. Slight curve of the low back returns, and at this point nothing is engaged. Now this is what I would consider neutral spine, or neutral low spine at least. So we'll do that one more time of lifting the low back up, arching the low back, lower the low back down, hug belly muscles in, low back flattens. Go ahead and release your belly muscles. Slight curve of the low back returns. So you can do this 2 more times in your own pace, in your own time, getting integrated into your body. So one major purpose of arch and flatten is to bring the low back into gentle tension, and then lowering out of it to release all tension in the low back. And following through with that is bringing the belly muscles in to flatten the low back, lengthen it against the ground to kind of expel any leftover tension in the low back. And then upon releasing the belly muscles, we're releasing tension in those muscles as well. So a lot of the times you might hear some stomach gurgles at that point. That's a good sign, means the work is working. And yeah, so by now I'm guessing you finished your arch and flattens, and we'll move on to the next step here. So we'll bring our awareness back to the connection between the soles of the feet and the floor, and then this time allowing every other part of the body to be quiet and to be at ease. We'll start to apply pressure into the feet. So pressing your feet gently into the ground, and notice where that tension draws up into the lower body. without lifting up your hips. Hips stay planted now again as well for now. And then go ahead and release that tension. So everything comes to rest once again. And then go ahead and press your feet into the floor, bringing tension into your low body. Notice where that tension travels into. And then as you release, notice where it leaves first. You know, the path of tension as it exits through your hips, down your legs. And then this time, just press your right foot into the floor. Bring gentle tension in between, or pressure in between your right foot and the floor. And notice where that tension travels up into in your body. And then release your right foot. And then press your left foot into the floor. Noticing where that tension travels into. Maybe even diagonally up into your core. And then release your left foot. So this time, press your feet into the floor and begin to lift your hips up off of the floor, just a couple of inches into a mini bridge. And then ever so slowly, rolling your spine back down to the floor, lowering your hips back down. Notice which hip sets down first, which hip lets go last. And then this time, as you press your feet into the floor, lift your hips up off the ground into your mini bridge. And as you lower yourself back down to the ground, see if you can lower your hips down at exactly the same time, bringing your pelvis and your hips into synchronicity. Gently lowering and setting your hips down until your whole body is once again at rest in this effortless rest pose. And then as you're ready, you can roll over onto your side, push yourself up, and then come all the way through to a tabletop position. So knees are stacked right underneath hips. Wrists are relatively right underneath shoulders. If you want them a little bit forward, that's usually a little bit more comfortable for the wrists. If this is super uncomfortable for your wrist, you can wad up your blanket or your mat, or you can even come onto your fists. Sometimes that's a little bit better. Totally up to you. Also notice if you're collapsing into your shoulders. See if you can find a space where you're not totally pressed up, pushing away the ground, and you're not totally collapsed. Find that space right in between where you feel the most comfortable, I guess, in your shoulders. And see if you can hold there. Also, something to be aware of is if your elbows are turned forward and really overextended, see if you can encourage your elbow pits to face in towards each other, kind of like baby bulldog arms, I like to call them. So bring some more strength into your shoulders and pressure off of your wrists and your elbows. So once you feel situated in your tabletop, allow your belly button to sink in towards the floor. And your head and your neck follow along in the opposite direction, so you look about 2 feet forward, maybe 3. Coming into cow. And then as you're ready, bring your belly button in towards your spine, up towards the ceiling. Your head and your neck follow along in the opposite direction. So if you'd like your head to comfortably hang here, no need to excessively tuck your chin. And then whenever you're ready, relax your belly button back down towards the ground. Coming back into cow, you look about 2 feet forward. And then as you're ready, belly button to spine to ceiling. And if you notice any wiggles or places where you feel exceptionally stuck along the way through your cow and your cat, feel free to wiggle through those places or pause and breathe. You can also pair this motion with your breath by inhaling as you cow, filling up your whole front body with air. And then as you exhale, belly button to spine to ceiling, coming into cat. And then inhale, release belly button to floor, fill up your body with air. And exhale, pressing air out, belly button to spine to ceiling. So continue this in your own time, your own pace, wiggling through any wiggles, pausing any space you feel exceptionally stuck. And listen to what your body is asking for. When you're feeling complete with your cats and your cows, we'll meet back in tabletop. And step your hands, a good handprint forward. We'll rock forward on your wrists just until you start to feel your abs engage, coming into half plank. And then rock back a little bit deeper than when you started. Push yourself forward into half plank, warming up those wrists, getting them used to taking the weight of your body. And rock back, sinking a little bit deeper this time even. Rocking forward. And this time, if you like your knees a little bit wider for child's pose, definitely an essential if you have a bulbous belly like me in the way. And sink back into your child's pose here. So in child's pose, we aim to have our sits bones attached to your heels. And then from there, walking your way forward just as far as you can go while maintaining your heel to sits bone connection. So if that means you only go this deep, that's all right. You can always bring your pillow to support your head. This is also a great time to recenter in your breath, noticing where your breath is in the body, inviting it nice and deeply into your belly. So as you inhale, your belly might press against your thighs, and as you exhale, you might sink a little bit deeper into your child's pose. And as you're ready, you can walk your hands back towards your knees. Move any props out of the way. And come forward onto your hands. Tuck your toes underneath you. And then begin to walk yourself up to standing, but pause when your hands meet your shins. Walk on up here. All right, so here we are, kind of in a chair, hands are on shins. Sorry, here we are in halfway lift, rather, if you want to be technical. Hands are on shins, and then as slowly as you can, start to stand. Maybe taking 2 breaths to do so, focusing on the feeling of release in this psoas area of your front hips. A lot of us have been sitting a lot lately, so really releasing that area as slowly as possible is going to be a great thing to do. And we'll work with that a little bit more. So, while we're here in mountain, I'm just gonna turn for your viewing purposes. We'll inhale your arms up and exhale back down. Inhale, arms up, full belly breath, and exhale, arms come back down. One more time of inhale, arms up, belly fills with air, and exhale, arms through to heart center. Turn back in here so you can see me. So from here, take a nice soft bend in your knees. Kind of sinking into a chair pose. And then hinge at your hip to bring yourself forward and bring forearms down to thighs. So once again, if you are pregnant, feel free to step your feet apart to make space for your belly. And from here, we're going to get into the hamstrings a little bit more. So pressing your feet into the ground, lift your sits bones up towards the ceiling, press into the backs of your knees, or what I like to call some like to call knee pits. And then as you find the edge of your hamstring, so not crossing over into any strain or pain, but finding that space where your hamstring doesn't go any farther, an edge of intensity, and then back off. Bring that bend into your knee. We'll do that again, of pressing feet into ground, lifting sits bones to the ceiling, and then back off. So what this does is it gently invites your hamstrings to release and lengthen without yanking them in half, like a lot of hamstring stretches. So, all right. You can also sync the breath with this as well. So what I like to do is imagine myself breathing into my knee pits, filling up with air, and then exhale and back off. Some people like to do it completely opposite. Whatever feels best in your body. And while you're here, if you'd like to release your neck and drop your head down, that might feel good. Otherwise, you can keep your head stacked right on the end of your spine. And then from here, soften your knees, bringing a deeper bend to your knees. Once again, slide your hands up, slowly standing up, using a couple breaths to get all the way to the top of your stance. Really noticing how that feels on the fronts of your thighs as they let go and you come to standing. And then from here, we will take this back down to the floor and make your way over to a clear wall, or you might want to use your feet up on a couch if you don't have a wall available, or if that just sounds more comfortable to you. So we're going to come back down to the floor and keep your bottom a good hefty distance away from the wall so you can have a nice, like, greater than 90-degree angle in your knees. We'll go into a very, very gentle inversion called legs up the wall, one of my personal favorites. This will get into releasing your hips a little bit more from all that sitting, or if you are one of our frontliners of people working all day long, as you know, someone working in the hospitals or the grocery stores, factory workers, those people that are, you know, work to the bone right now. This is also a great thing to get any lymphatic fluid that collects down in your legs to slosh back up into your body. Get some fresh blood moving around. So the positioning we'd like to have right now is, once again, tuning into how this feels for your low back. You know, if you're too close or too far away, your back might be unnaturally arched or flattened. So finding that space where you can, or that degree of knee bending, where you feel like you could slip, you know, a credit card underneath your low back. So that nice natural curve in the lumbar spine. And then from here, we'll keep the left leg right where it is and allow your right knee to tip off to the side. Once again, going nice and slow, focusing on that feeling of release in your inner right hip as our right knee, or right hip rather, externally rotates or opens up off to the side. And then ever so slowly, go ahead and bring your knee back up to starting position, using the muscles only, or only the muscles in your inner hip, inner thigh. So also something to watch right now while you're doing this is while you have your knee tipping off to the side, if your pelvis wants to rotate along with your knee, so the little bony hip bone muscle, or bony hip bones are tilting with your knee, that means you are not necessarily releasing in the hip, but everything is shifting with it. So go ahead and stop there and bring your knee back up and go just as far as your hip will allow without your pelvis tilting along with it. And then bring your knee back up nice and slow. And you might start to notice this sensation in your hip. Feels different for everyone. Might feel cool, might feel warm. This is sensation of release. So with each release off to the side, your knee might, or your hip might open up a little bit farther. And the key is just to be friendly with yourself and understanding of where your hip is currently. And, you know, there's no need to force it. It's also a great opportunity to build very, very thorough dexterity and strength in the hips. And for this session, we'll just work with releasing the hips, and with the maybe next one we'll get into more strengthening. There is like a part 2 to this motion, technically part 3 and 4 as well, but for right now we're kind of keeping it really simple. Just allowing the hips to open up. Maybe tomorrow in the video I'll go through the next part in this hip release. So let's switch on over to the left hip. So keeping the right leg right where it is. We'll allow the left knee to open up and tip off to the side, nice and slow. Also tuning into, once again, if you'd like to, pick your head up and look, to watch your pelvis. Make sure, you're aware of when it's tilting along with your knee, or when your hip truly is releasing off to the side. And then ever so slowly noticing, ever so slowly rather, picking your knee back up to that neutral place. Slowly allowing your hip to release off to the side. Maybe it gets to let go a little bit deeper this time. All the while remembering to breathe nice and deep into your belly. Bringing yourself back to what we're doing right now. Becoming aware, being open to any new sensations in your hip, in your opposite hip. Also noticing if there's any differences in between your hips, with how far your knee can release off to the side without a knee tilting. Oftentimes our hips will be completely different when we're starting out. Totally normal. So bringing that knee back up to neutral. We'll do this a few more times. Allowing your left knee to tip off to the side. Slowly drawing it back up. Building that thorough strength through every little muscle fiber in your hips, internal rotators. And once you're feeling evened out on both sides, just take a moment. Be at rest and at ease with our legs up. If you want to straighten your legs out at this point, maybe give a little wiggle. And walk your feet down. Roll onto your side. Push yourself up. And grab onto any large pillows that you might have. You can use them underneath your knees. If you have a bolster, that's amazing. You can use that underneath your knees. We'll come back down to the floor for the Shavasana. So as we've been practicing, bring ourselves to this moment in this space, in our homes, on our floor. It's a nice, safe place we're so lucky to have. Tune in one more time to the print of the back of your body on our mat. on the floor. Scanning down the print of the back of your head, the slight curve of your neck, the print of the backs of your shoulders, slight curve of your low back, and the print of the backs of your hips. The backs of your legs resting on your bolster. Or if you don't have a bolster or a pillow or anything and your knees are bent up, feeling the connection between the soles of your feet and the ground. If your legs are just out long, flat on the floor, feeling the print of the backs of your legs, backs of your calves, your heels. Inviting the rest of your body that isn't touching the floor to be soft. Feeling the tops of your feet float in the air. Feeling your shins float in the air. Fronts of your knees sitting in space and softening. Sensing the tops of your thighs soft. Feeling the tops of your hips, allowing them to soften. Feeling the rise and the fall, along with the breath in your belly. Inviting your chest to soften, your shoulders to the fronts of your shoulders to float in the space over the print of the backs of your shoulders. Inviting your jaw to unclench and soften. Your tongue unsticks from the roof of your mouth and floats in space. Your eyes are invited to soften, feeling heavy in their sockets. Your eyebrows soften and slide off to the side. And we'll follow your awareness once again back towards the breath. Where is your breath located? And begin to release any need to control the breath. Letting the breath be as it is. Being only a watcher of your breath as your breath breathes you, as it does all day, every day, without you even noticing. Our breath is with us every moment. Anytime we need to come back to the present moment, we can check in with our breath. You can listen to your breath. You can smell the scent of the air as it enters through your nostrils. And exits. And taste any tastes in your mouth or the breath. And feel a moment of gratitude for our breath as it is, each and every moment. And then bring our awareness back to the breath at the belly. Sense the feeling of your breath at the diaphragm. That wonderful, strong, dependable diaphragm. welcome some movement back into the body. With whatever motion your body is calling for, any wiggles, any shifts. Maybe bring your arms overhead, stretch your feet out long for a full body stretch. Maybe bring your knees into your chest, one knee at a time. Bringing your knees in for a gentle hug. Maybe rock your knees side to side if that feels good to you. And as you're ready, you can roll onto one side, support your head with your lower arm. And pause for just a couple of breaths on your side. Allowing for a moment of muscle memory to form for this state of relaxation. Being awake but at ease, restfully aware. Noticing your breath in your belly. And then when you're ready, you can use the strength of your arms to push yourself up to a seated position. If you want to stay laying down, feel free because it is bedtime. But thank you for being here today. Thank you for your patience with my first video nerves, fumbliness. But the light in me and the darkness in me sees and honors the light and the darkness in you. And in these times, let's invite the light to shine in all the corners of our darkness. There's nowhere to be but this present moment. Nothing to do but to be here, to take care of ourselves and others to the best of our abilities. Stay healthy, eat nutritious food, and we'll get through this. And stay in the moment, this moment. Don't let your worries carry you away. With that, we'll say namaste. Good night.